Mainit na balita.
Senator Marcoleta, no? Who scored very strongly in the Senate race, but he's a newcomer. And I don't think historically a newcomer's ever been given the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. It's a surprise to many that a newcomer is the chairman of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee.
Senator Marcoleta is not a newcomer. In the Senate perhaps, but not in the House. So he's been in Congress for quite some time. He's a litigator, he's a practicing lawyer, and I think neophyte or not, he will do a good job as the Blue Ribbon Committee chairperson.
Nako, matindi ho ang naging sagutan nitong si Senate President CHIZ ESCUDERO at nitong si Karen Davila. Kasi yung ibang mga kritiko nitong si Senator Dante Marcoleta, kini-question yung pagiging baguhang senador niya, bakit daw ibinigay sa kanya yung Blue Ribbon Committee, gayong napakarami namang veteranong abogado sa Senado. Bakit ito daw si Senator Dante Marcoleta ang pinahawak dyan sa napakamakapangyarihang committee na yan? At isa na ho dyan, yung mga pinklawan at dilawan, kini-question ho nila yung desisyon na yan ng pamunuan ng Senado.
Okay, now let's talk about the Senate presidency. You having 19 votes, am I correct? 19.
Yes, Karen.
19 votes. You've already, first of all,
Ano din siya parang ang dating unanimous din ng Si Soto, iyak na naman dito. Tigilan nyo na si Soto. Hindi na nag-ano kayo.
you were up against a former Senate president who is also your party mate. I mean, take me through that. Why did you both not discuss it, right? I mean, some people asked, it doesn't look good for the party itself. You and Senator Tito Soto, magkapartido kayo, ba't di kayo nag-usap?
Karen, even when I first ran, only one party mate of mine out of 4 in the Senate voted for me in the 19th Congress in May. So, ganon din to. Gusto ba nyo parang sindikato ang partido? Kami-kami lang mag-uusap at hindi yung botante? Hindi ba mas maganda na sa dulo yung botante, in this case the senators, are the ones who chose instead of choosing for them? That has been my principle ever since I entered the House actually in 1998. I'd rather that things be done on the floor than in closed doors.
Okay, so you've already announced the major committees. You have Senator Kiko Pangilinan for Agri, Bam Aquino for Education, and so on. No, Win Gatchalian for Finance, that's correct. No, and you have Marcoleta for the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. We're showing a list right now on your screen. So
Yes.
these have already been decided. Take us through, for example, Kiko Pangilinan and Bam Aquino, which could have been in the minority, and yet you gave them juicy, powerful committees.
These are not. I don't consider committees, Karen, either juicy or non-juicy, powerful or non-powerful. There's a reason why these committees exist, and it's a question of their respective advocacies and core competence. So sa kaso, sa sitwasyon ni Senator Pangilinan, he ran on that platform. Sa sitwasyon ni Senator Bam Aquino, he ran on that platform specifically too. Sa kaso nung iba, they were former executive department officials handling those offices. So we tried to make do with the available talent we have in the Senate. So it's not really a question of giving them this or that. And another thing, Karen.
Okay. And I wanted to ask you, before you move,
Yes.
if newcomer Senator Marcoleta, no? Who scored very strongly in the Senate race, but he's a newcomer. And I don't think historically a newcomer's ever been given the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. No? I mean, it doesn't mean he'll do a bad job, not at all. But it's a surprise to many that a newcomer is the chairman of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. And some have said it was your way to essentially court and win over the Duterte bloc. What are your thoughts? How did that happen?
Again, Karen, that's par for the course because I think these accusations were raised during the campaign for Senate presidency. Senator Marcoleta is not a newcomer. In the Senate perhaps, but not in the House. Nakasama ko si Senator Marcoleta nung nasa Kamara pa lamang ako. So he's been in Congress for quite some time. He's a litigator, he's a practicing lawyer, and I think neophyte or not, he will do a good job as the Blue Ribbon Committee chairperson and raise the flag of the institution through his stewardship of this committee. For me, Karen, hindi naman kapansanan ang pagiging bago eh. Hindi rin lamang yung pagiging matanda na. Pantay-pantay
Soto, hindi daw lamang pagiging matanda na.
lang kaming lahat sa Senado. Bago man o luma, matagal man o ngayon lang. We are all senators elected by the people and we have one vote each. Hindi mas maraming boto yung veterano ha. Hindi kalahating boto yung bago at bata. We all have the same votes and I think it would be unfair, to say the least, na maliitin yung kakayanan ng bago, ng bata at sabihing mas may kakayanan. Automatic yung mas nakatatanda o mas matagal nang nanilbihan.
Okay, now your colleagues, no? You have Senator Mig Zubiri, who was former Senate President. I mean, he was ousted. You have Senator Loren Legarda, Lacson Soto. These are senior senators. You've worked with them through several Congresses, and they're now in the minority. Would you want to change the situation and have them over to join the majority? Is that possible?
No, Karen. In a democracy, you cannot dictate. In a democracy, you allow a free vote for them to decide freely. As you said yourself, the two former presidents, one of whom wanted to be the Senate President again, decided to be in the minority, and I respect that. I look forward to working with them. I look forward to engaging them with respect to the meaningful pieces of legislation we will be discussing and passing.
Are you in speaking terms? I mean, this is quite personal, but
Ayun na nga mga kababayan, dito na natatapusin ang ating reaction video. Bottom line dito, hindi natin pwedeng maliitin niya si Rodante Marcoleta. Sa tingin ho natin sa lahat ng senador ngayon, siya ho pinaka-qualified na maging Blue Ribbon Committee Chairperson. Yan lang ho si Senator Rodante Marcoleta. Dahil sa husay niyan, sa tapang niyan, hindi ho basta-basta magpapakahon yan doon sa mga nag-aaring wuri dyan sa Malacanang at House of Representatives. Senator Chiz, ano bang natin latest?
Climate change. DPWH has been adapting projects left and right, and I'm not necessarily the one again, Karen, that's an insinuation that is from Sorsogon. So we should ask DPWH. Again, what the President said was, may mga proyektong maanomalya. Sino ba ang unang nakakaalam ng maanomalyang proyekto? Sino bang pumayag and signed off to these projects as well? It would be nice to look at, if at all, of the total flood control budget, ano ba yung allocation ng kada probinsya at lalawigan? For example, the billions of pesos in flood control in Metro Manila. Porkit ba yung mayor doon ay sikat magaling sa kanila at yun? Yung mga senador ba taga Maynila, kanila na agad yun? Yung congressman ba? How do you factor that in? And then all of a sudden, in two provinces, Karen, may I finish, Karen? In two provinces, only Bulacan and Sorsogon, biglang sa amin yun at kami may-ari nun. Hindi naman tama yun.
Kasi ang tanong ng ilan, ang daming binabaha sa Metro Manila, for example, nakita naman natin, bakit hindi sila ang malaking budget sa flood control, Senator?
Well, malaki ang budget ng Metro Manila, Karen. Actually, on top of DPWH, also MMDA, may mga foreign assisted projects pa. But Karen, I'm not about to defend the proposals of DPWH. Let them do that. That is for the agency, I guess, to explain and say. Also, the representatives there. Ikaw naman, Karen. Ako na yung responsable kahit hindi sa aming lalawigan. Tapos pati Metro Manila, ako na naman. Hindi naman ganun yun. Again, we are open to investigating this.
Ikaw naman, Karen. Huwag naman ganun, Karen naman.
In fact, Senator Bam, I believe, has filed a resolution to investigate this already, and it will be proceeded with accordingly by the Senate for the simple reason that we are hiding nothing and we are not afraid of anything.
Okay. Now, you talked about your career a bit by saying, ngayon pa na tumanda ako. Ito pa yung akusasyon, which is a very good point. When you started, you became known as a legislator in Congress as an opposition senator, right? You spoke about corruption. And then now when you open social media and you have critics saying that, accusing you of being one of the masterminds of a corrupt 2025 budget. So the accusation of corruption against you has come today. Not even when you ran for vice president, right? In the past. Hindi. Ngayon ka sinasabing corrupt senator.
What's your question, Karen?
No.
Hindi ito unang beses na sinabi yan, Karen, ha? Ngayon lang siguro mas na-highlight dahil ako ang Senate President at naging mainit yung labanan sa Senate Presidency. Usually, the Senate Presidency doesn't involve criticisms against candidates running for that post. In fact, this is the first time that criticisms have been made against candidates running for the Senate Presidency. This is new for me even in my long years in politics. But what is your question, Karen? I consider it par for the course. Ang importante, hindi totoo, natawag na ako ng maraming bagay sa nagdaang panahon. Most if not all of which have been disproven simply because they are not true. Yung sinabi ng presidenteng mahiya naman kayo, actually, I did not feel alluded to. In fact, I was one of the first to stood up and clap. I think you would know who were the ones that took a while to stand up and clap without naming names anymore.
Okay.
Sino yun? Sino yung mga yun? Sa bagay, sa bigat ng katawan nitong si Martin Romualdez, kung di siya tumayo, maiintindihan ko na. Baka maraming laman yung bulsa niya, baka meron pa nakatape sa katawan niya, no? Kaya, hirap tumayo, hindi ako makapalakpak. Nanto ko.
Okay. Then I wanted to ask you this. So,
Yes.
you are introducing a bill banning officials' relatives from serving as contractors and suppliers, right? So the intention is good. Pero ang mga
Because that is so commonplace already of late, Karen.
commonplace when it comes to congressmen having
That is so commonplace when it comes to congressmen and local officials. In fact, if I recall Senator Lacson's interview recently correctly, he actually gave a number. There are 60 or 65 members of the House who are. I'm not aware of any in the Senate who are either contractors or suppliers. It should be prohibited, Karen. It should be covered by the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act as a conflict of interest. However, the practice has always been to simply divest to the wife, divest to the son, divest to the daughter, and say they have no part in it anymore and therefore they have no conflict of interest. We're trying to stretch that up to the fourth civil degree of consanguinity and affinity, meaning to say hanggang sa first cousin. In fact, baka nga pwedeng palawigin pa. In the hope, Karen, na kung malayo-layo na't malayo na, pues wala ng control, wala ng impluensya, pwede pa nga siyang takbuhan pa siguro kung sakasakali.
Okay. Now, do you think this will make a difference considering you have word on the street saying ang hinihingi na ng politiko bago pa na itayo yung kali ay 30% ahead daw sa actual na kontrata? I'm sure you've heard this already, Senator. Will this make a difference?
It will make a difference, Karen, kasi medyo nagbago na daw yun yan eh. Kung pagkikinggan mo rin yung mga kwento-kwento, hindi na nanghihingi ang politiko. Sila na mismo ang nagpapagawa, Karen. At yan ang sinusubukang iwasan ng panukalang batas na ito.
Okay.
In fact, I got a text from Congressman Sandro Marcos last night, although I slept early. I saw it this morning, that he wanted to co-author that measure as well. And I happily agreed to have a counterpart version of this bill in the House.
Okay. Now, before we leave,
Ito talagang si Sandro, bida-bida, no? Anak ng toko, magagalit sa iyo yung mga yung Ako Bicol magagalit, yung Tingog magagalit, sino pa ba? Yung mga Gonzales magagalit. Ano mo yun, mga kamag-anak nila yun eh. O sino pa, yung One Rider Party List magagalit.
this, the House Speaker said that for the 2026 budget, you will be opening, you will make it transparent, you'll have civil society groups, stakeholders, observe, watch. How are you envisioning this, and will this make a difference?
Karen, again, let me trace back to when I was Finance Committee Chairman.
Yeah.
I opened the BICAM. That was the first time that the BICAM was also quote-unquote open. But most of the work, as you will see when the BICAM is opened, most of the work are being done by secretariat personnel reconciling figures. So when I opened it, first
In other
day,
words, you mean staff, the team.
there were some media. Second day, wala nang nagpunta because it was basically computing and encoding. I'll try to describe it, Karen. The House there's the NEP. The House amended the NEP and came out with the GAB, the General Appropriations Bill. The Senate will now base its amendments on the GAB, what we got from the House. Now you have to understand, the original document is still the NEP. So when the House amended the NEP, they got from this department, that department, moved it to this department, to that department.
Mababang
When the-
kapulungan ang gumawa nun. Kumbaga, kung may korupsyon at galit kayo sa amendment, sinasabi niyo, Senator, mababang kapulungan ang gumalaw nun.
Yung unang parte, Karen, yung GAB. Now, when the Senate comes, they will review the proposal of the budget of the House through the GAB, and will base amendments on their amendments. So, kunwari, yung sweldo, ginawang ganito, kinuha dito yung...
Senator, I lost you. You're on mute?
Sorry, no, I'm not.
Oh, go on. Okay, now you...
Dadagdagan pala o babawasan at baka sabihin namin, maling bawasan to, dapat kunin to dito, mas hindi kailangan. So, when the BICAM meets, it's actually the staff who will work more often than not to try to identify where they got what and to try to reconcile asa na tayo ngayon. So, usually, the challenge is that the procedure is to go back to NEP. To start with the NEP all over again and trace back.
Okay.
Kung saan napunta yun. That's most of the job, Karen.
Yeah, but...
Then, after it's consolidated, it'll be presented to the members of the BICAM who will either complain, object, agree. Now, that part, that should be covered by media as well. During my time, we made it open to the public.
Okay, because you've read reports, I'm sure, that it was, alleging the small BICAM, which I asked you, wherein these last-minute realignments came in, and reports that former finance chairperson, committee chair, Senator Grace Poe was sidelined. She was not fully informed of the changes. She didn't know what was happening. What's your reaction to that, Senator?
It's an unfair comment, Karen, because it strikes at her competence insofar as the job is concerned. They're forgetting. Senator Grace has been a member of the Senate she graduated in fact, just last 2025. Paano yan? Yung counterpart naman niya, ano naman siya? Anghel, sobrang bait, sobrang linis at walang ginawang mali. Again, these are unfair accusations that simply don't fit the character of the persons being
Hindi, may imbestigahan naman yan.
insinuated against, and fits more, I guess, the other characters involved in this picture.
You were one of the controversial figures nationally with this impeachment case against the vice president. First, I want to ask you, do you feel vindicated by the Supreme Court ruling, considering some have accused you of intentionally delaying the impeachment trial?
Yes, Karen, and I throw it back at them. 5 of the 11 orders of the Supreme Court to the House was actually the same order we gave to the House with respect to compliance with a 1-year ban. Alam mo kung ano nakakatawa dito sa mga kritiko ng impeachment na ito na ginawa ng Senado? Sabi nila noon, let me quote, for example, Chairman Monsod, sabi niya, walang kapangyarihan ng Senado magdesisyon tungkol sa 1-year ban. Wala silang pakialam dyan. Korte Suprema lang ang pwedeng magdesisyon kaugnay niyan. Noong nag-decide ang Supreme Court, Karen, ang panawagan ngayon ng mga taong yan, dapat Senate mag-decide, hindi ang Supreme Court. Overreach yan. The Senate can still continue. Ano ba naman yan, Karen? The rule and the law and the Constitution has to remain the same regardless of your position, regardless of who you're against, regardless of who the case is against. Pangalawa, siguro, itong desisyon ng Korte Suprema tuloy, pinapaniwala ako na baka naman kaya minamadalian ng Kamara. Baka kaya nagigil silang madali niyan. Ayaw antayin yung desisyon ng Korte Suprema dahil alam nilang may balljack at gustong pangunahan na agad ng Senado para sabihin na ay, nasa gitna naman na, ituloy na natin, tapusin na natin.
Ayun.
Ano ay nang gagawin ng Senado pagdating nun? We will acquit or convict later on to find out that the Senate had no jurisdiction to begin with. That would have put us in a very precarious situation. That's why the exercise by the Senate, not only of myself, with abundant caution with respect to this impeachment, deciding to do it the right way, I believe was indeed vindicated by the decision of the court, which, Karen, the court said is immediately executory.
I know. So now, being a lawyer yourself, what infirmity did you spot when it reached the Senate?
What we precisely asked them in our twin orders. Number one, compliance with the one-year ban. We did not say they did not comply, but we wanted them to present proof that they indeed complied. And number two, for the next Congress, this Congress, the 20th Congress, Karen, to indicate to us that they still persist or decided to push through with it. I believed, Karen, that tatawid ito sa 20th Congress. But there are 2 or 3 concurring opinions, not part of the majority opinion, Karen. 2 justices that said, hindi ito tatawid. Hanggang 19th na lang ito. So yung ikalawang order ng Senado, medyo tinatch-upan ng ilang mahistrado ng Korte Suprema sa kanilang concurring opinion. Again, proving the concerns of the senators, 18 at least of us, correct and well-founded.
So, what happens now? Let's move forward, no? You have the Supreme Court saying it is unconstitutional, deemed null and void, immediately executory. So, being a co-equal branch of government, what happens now, Senator? What do you do with the situation?
May kulang ka, Karen. Null and void ab initio.
Yes.
And the next paragraph stated that the Senate never acquired jurisdiction over it. What will we do? As I said and as I keep on saying, tinutwist lang ng ibang kritiko ng Senado na pagbobotohan pa, konstitusyon na, may desisyon na, pagbobotohan.
In fairness etong si CHIZ, umamin na yan na ayaw niya kay VP Sara. Di ba umamin na siya? Ayaw. President Sara Duterte. Lahat ng siya sabi na hindi tatawid, siya gusto niya tumawid. Tama mali? Pero nung nagsalita ang Korte Suprema, dahil kailangan respetuhin at Senate President siya, abogado siya, dapat magpakita siya ng magandang halimbawa na kailangan nating igalang ang rule of law. Kahit na ayaw niya kay VP Sara, kahit natatawid na ang impeachment from 19 to 20, rinispeto pa rin niya. Dapat ganyan lang. Magpaka-consistent lang, ika nga. Wow.
But the Senate is a collegial body. As I said in my opening speech the other day, the Senate decides everything as a collegial body. Someone will move. If someone objects, we put it to a vote. So we will put this to a debate and vote, Karen, on a date certain on August 6. What to do with the impeachment in light of the Supreme Court decision. The choices that we discussed in caucus are varying. So it depends on what the motion will be. To
Ano yung
either
mga choices, Senator? Baka you can share without naming your colleagues. Ano yung mga choices na discuss sa caucus?
To decide on it because it's immediately executory. Napag-usapan din na paano kung ma-reverse yan. May argumentong unanimous yan sa karanasan at kasaysayan. Hindi nangyayaring nare-reverse yan. At kung intention talaga ng Korte Supremang hindi ito agad patupad, hindi nila nilagay yung immediately executory, pwede rin namang hintayin na mag-file muna yung House of Representatives ng recon. Pero hindi pa maliwanag yun. Baka mag-antay kami sa wala. At kung inintay namin yun, kailan na naman magpapasa ang Korte Suprema? In the meantime, anong gagawin namin? Held in abeyance, postponed muna. Nung nakarang mga buwan, Karen, nagmamadali at gigil na gigil yung mga tutol kay Vice President Sara at pabor sa impeachment. Ngayon naman sila ang nangihingi ng panahon na wag daw madaliin, wag daw gawin ng Senado agad, maghintay daw muna. Again, we cannot decide based on mere whim of these partisan people who have already taken a position either for or against. I said this at the beginning of the impeachment when it was filed last February 5. Hindi ko papakinggan yung mga may pasa at desisyon na. Yung pabor kay VP Sara at ayaw sa impeachment, yung ayaw kay VP Sara at gusto sa impeachment. I will not be cowed nor bullied by these people into acting one way or the other. We will do what we think is right.
So if the Supreme Court said the Senate never acquired jurisdiction, would that mean that the whole process that the Senate took as an impeachment court was technically null and void as well? What does that mean?
Yes, Karen.
Yun yun.
Yes, that's why the wording of the Supreme Court was null and void ab initio. Ab initio, Latin to mean from the beginning.
So paano yun? Will it be in the records? You had senators, you took your oath, di ba? May kang proseso. What does that mean? It won't go in the records?
That will all be part of the records, Karen.
Okay.
So that the story can and will be told. The Senate is a body of record.